The latest tech.
People love iPhone, and it's an important part of our daily lives.
Interviews.
You see far too many products that come on the market that you look at that you say, was a blind person ever even consulted for something like this?
Accessibility.
The most interesting thing over the last couple of years is the emphasis on gaming and accessibility.
This is Double Tap TV.
Hey guys, welcome to another episode of Double Tap TV. I am Stephen Scott.
And I am Marc Aflalo. Stephen, you know I love this time of year, not just because the birds are chirping and the weather is getting great again, and the grass is getting greener, but because it's time to break out all the outdoor tech that lays pretty dormant throughout the winter, especially in my shed.
Outdoor tech, Mark. You know, what kind of tech can't be used all year round? I'm intrigued.
Okay, well, think about it, okay? Smart thermostats for the grill. That's number one, for example. My pool cleaning robot, we talked about that last year. The automatic lawnmower. Let's talk about Philips Hue lights. I've got those throughout my garden. And the deck. And you know what? Honestly, whatever else I could possibly think of getting my hands on that makes outdoors fun is all about tech.
Okay, I get it now. Clearly there is some tech that is seasonal. Okay. Now, I remember you talking about that hot tub chemical reader a couple of years back. I was very intrigued by that.
Yeah, don't get me started with that, because I got an email randomly about a year ago, and it was towards the end of the season, saying, this email is to let you know that we're shutting down the service, and as of this date, nothing will work anymore. That $500 you invested in this wonderful device is no longer going to function. So unfortunately, that project ended rather abruptly, and that email was the only notification that I got. So that $500 in the garbage.
So, yeah, so the device itself doesn't even work anymore.
No, not even work. You'd think that it'd make it work natively with an app directly or something, but no. It needed a cloud-based service to analyze results and send information back. It was just not. You know, in theory, and this is a conversation I remember having a couple of years ago with, the company was Hayward. They make a lot of pool equipment and things for in-ground pools and above-ground pools and hot tubs. There's this holy grail in terms of that industry, and that holy grail is some kind of device that will be able to read the water, detect it, and as it needs, feed what it needs into the water to make sure it's perfectly balanced. And no one's cracked that. And I'm amazed that we can, you know, treat COVID-19, but we can't fill my hot tub with proper chemicals. It's not normal.
I will admit there's granted slight difference in the two, and I think in some respects, as much as I would love that kind of device, I'd kind of rather they sorted out COVID-19 first. But I get your point. I do take your point. You know, the thing is, it's strange because literally a piece of paper is what we use to measure the pH levels and all the various, you know, whatever it is, chlorine levels that are in the hot tub. And why can't a machine just read that and apply the appropriate amount of whatever it needs, pH levels or whatever it is? It's ridiculous.
Well, how do you even read that? Because with your low vision, obviously everything's blurry. Like, how do you even read that to make sure that you're bathing in proper clean water?
It's called Hope. That is all I have. God. I have Hope and I have Neighbours, and when a neighbour comes around I ask them to do it, and beyond that I am playing around with tools like the new Be My Eyes Virtual Volunteer, because it is able to assess pretty well some of this stuff. But you know what, I still like a pair of working eyes just to be sure what the AI is picking up is actually correct. So yeah, still no technical solution. Yeah,
well, I'm still getting there. You know, there are things in my garden that I want to automate. I want to do some smart irrigation. I'm tired of putting sprinklers out and watering the grass and having a yellow lawn in the front of me. I'm trying to figure out lights for my fence. I know I have some Philips Hue out there, but that gets really expensive when you want to put a Philips Hue smart bulb, for example, on 37 light posts.
Yeah, and, well, that because you've got to put all the cabling in, you've got to get power out there. This is, if it runs on battery or solar, you're not going to get the kind of power and the light that you want, I would imagine, and you're certainly not going to be able to hook it up to Wi-Fi. You know, that's another area, right? If they improved on the solar capability, then, you know, if these batteries could charge up better during the course of a day, then maybe this would be a smarter way to do it. rather than laying cables everywhere. Very expensive way of doing things. And, you know, you've then got to manage all that. And let's be honest, most people are not going to do that. You and I will do it because we're geeks. Most people probably won't.
I don't know what you're talking about. I don't know what you're talking about, Stephen. You know what?
Neither do I. I have no idea.
This week, we're going to have some fun because we've got someone lined up on the show who's going to talk to us about grilling, talk to us about the outdoors. He's actually someone who actually called us. He left us a message. So we decided we want to talk outdoors. Let's bring him back on the show. So I hope you'll entertain me this week when we have some fun and talk about the outdoors, okay?
But before that, you mentioned a couple of things in passing that I need to know more about. An automatic lawnmower, did I hear you say?
Didn't we talk about this last year? I could have sworn that we did a segment about this, but yeah. I've got an automatic lawnmower. The company is Husqvarna. That's the one that I use. And you know what? It's basically a robot vacuum with blades. Sits in a charging dock just like your vacuum would. You set the schedule on an app and it goes out and mows the lawn. Now, I gotta let you in on a secret here. Unlike a typical mower where you go out once a week and you just mow your lawn, this one's actually designed to take off smaller amounts at a time. So just like your Roomba would map your home, it actually maps your backyard. And then slowly over a period of time, because it holds a charge of about, I guess, an hour or so, it goes out and does this section, goes out and does that section, and eventually comes back, recharges, and continues and goes through the cycle again.
Wow, that is amazing. Does it collect the clippings? Because, you know, I'm thinking like...
No, it actually throws the clippings back on the grass.
Wow.
So that it kind of mulches it back up.
All right, okay. And what happens if it hits a rock or, you know, a hill? What happens then?
Okay, so there's different models for those, okay? For example, if you own a farm, you got a lot of hills, you're not going to use the same one that you use in a residential home. I had some issues with some patio stones, and of course, depending on the terrain, it's a tricky little thing that you have to deal with. But eventually, it does the job.
Okay. Now, I have to ask you this one, because, you know, it is a concern for a lot of people when you have robots like this that are very expensive and they're outside. Can it be stolen? Or could it even just wander off by itself?
Well, it can wander because when they actually installed it, they dug a line around the house. You know, dogs have these virtual fences,
yeah.
So your dog doesn't leave your property. It's kind of like that, but they dug a line in the ground around the perimeter of my property. So there's that to keep it in. It's also pin locked and there's GPS. So in the app, you can actually see if it does disappear outside the perimeter, it'll warn you, and you can even track it down, and you can like go to someone's house and say, hey, Give me my mower back.
That seems like an incredible tool for someone who, you know, can't go out every week and push a mower, or even, you know, can't see their lawn to do it for themselves. And I guess the same works for that pool robot you mentioned.
Yeah, honestly, like these are perfect tools because the apps are accessible. You don't have to go out and figure out where to mow the lawn and if you mowed it properly. In the pool, you don't have to worry about cleaning the pool. You literally just set a schedule and go. So for an entire season, or if you live somewhere that's hot all year long, you can literally just throw it in, set the schedule, and let it go. It'll pick up all the algae. It'll pick up all the dirt. And kind of similar to, you know, the robot that you know, similar to like a pool boy, for example. You know, it does the scrubbing, it does everything on the schedule you want, and it maps it. I mean, these things are smart. They've got sensors in the front, they got sensors in the back, they go all the way up the pool line. Honestly, they're quite cool tools, and you can even tie them to Amazon Echo Skills if you want to control it with your voice.
That's amazing. And you're saying there's loads of different types, different models as well?
Well, I mean, there's bigger pools, there's smaller pools, there's in-ground pools, there's above-ground pools. So there's even the one that's battery charged, which kind of scares me, to be perfectly honest, because a battery wireless device sitting in my pool, I mean, I'd rather have a cable that goes out to some kind of, you know, station, which is what I have. But yeah, the battery kind of scares me. But there are tons of different models.
Well, I mean, it all sounds brilliant, but you know, this is something we could really get into. But I really want to get into the subject of blind grilling. So look, stay with us. This is Double Tap TV. We'll be back in a moment.
You're watching Double Tap TV. Get involved. Follow us at Double Tap On Air or email us feedback@doubletaponair.com. Double Tap TV will be right back. You're watching Double Tap TV.
And we're back on Double Tap TV talking all about outdoor tech this week as summer is upon us, Mark.
Oh, definitely, Stephen. A couple of months back, we did a call out for an Ask Us Anything show, and one person sent us this question, Stephen.
What would be the best way to approach a company to try and help them make their apps accessible for the blind and visually impaired so that they can use the same technology in the grills and smokers that everybody else is using.
Well, 7 years ago, Chris Peltz launched a podcast called The Blind Grilling Experience and his YouTube channel, The Blind Griller. Fast forward today, over 220 videos later, he joins us now to talk all about his experience. Chris, welcome to the show.
Yeah, thanks, man. I appreciate it very much.
Now, Chris, you reached out to us, so as luck would have it, we knew we were going to be talking about outdoor tech, but honestly, grilling didn't come to mind because it's not the first thing I think of when it comes to accessibility. So perhaps you could tell us how your channel got started and how you got into grilling. You know, were you always blind, if you don't mind me asking?
Yeah, so I was not born blind. I have RP, retinitis pigmentosa, and I found out I was losing my sight when I was 10. And within the first 6 years of that, so by the time I was 16, lost about 80% of my vision. But in that whole ordeal, going through that process, I worked and lived on a farm in central Missouri and, did a lot of grilling, a lot of cooking at home. Both parents not only worked the farm, but also had other jobs as well. So just did a lot around the house and had a lot of responsibilities when it came to cooking and grilling. And so when I left home, it was something that I definitely wanted to continue. And while it got more difficult as I lost more vision, it was something that I really never stopped doing. Maybe slowed down a little bit while I was trying to figure some things out. But about 14 years ago, I lost all usable vision. And so now I don't see shapes, colors, shadows, or anything like that anymore. So it's been it's been a ride trying to adapt to figure out things now with no vision. But so far, I think I've done pretty good.
Chris, what gave you the idea to start the YouTube channel? Because as you said, 14 years ago was when you lost all your usable vision. But the channel only started 7 years ago.
So my kids were getting a little older. I have 3 kids who, as of last year, have now all grown up and moved out of the house. But when I started the channel, it was a way to have something to share with the kids, have something to share with, engaging with them, doing something with teaching them how to cook and how to grill, knowing that eventually they would be out of the house and on their own. And just wanted to document kind of that interaction and that relationship that I had with my kids. And that's how it started. And of course, it morphed into so much more, but it definitely started with the idea of just having this to share with my kids.
So talk to me about, the process of grilling and, the process of using a grill without being able to see it. I mean, there's a lot of safety concerns here, and I'm sure that must come up from time to time. How did you find that experience? Was it something that just came to you because you started way before you lost your vision?
No, it was definitely a process and a learning curve, even going through the vision loss, because generally, when people think of grilling, you're thinking of a metal grill, right? You've got this metal beast in front of you that gets extremely hot, and you're feeling around and you're burning yourself. The biggest thing was being familiar with where everything was, first and foremost. So knowing where the handle was, where the door to the cooking chamber was, where the firebox was, where everything was. So that was the biggest challenge, was just getting familiar with everything.
Chris, what are some of the tools or the techniques that you would talk about on your channel and your podcast that, might make cooking easier and make sure that you're cooking the food the way you want it?
The biggest thing is fire management. Knowing your temperature is, I think, really the key to anything when it comes to cooking. Knowing not only the temperature of your grill, but then, of course, knowing the temperature of your food, especially your meat. And finding things that are accessible are not always the easiest thing to find. And in fact, when I had contacted Double Tap TV on that for that episode and that call to action that you had, there are lots of grilling companies out there that have Wi-Fi enabled controllers, but their apps are not accessible. While there are a few that are, the biggest challenge was just trying to know the temp. And while my kids at first, they were my temp gauge. Go out and check the temperature. And they get tired of doing that. And so finally, I contacted a company and asked them, said, "Hey, is your product accessible?" And they just said, "We don't know, but I tell you what, we'll send you one and you tell us." And that company, Flame Boss, that's what they did. They sent me one of their products, and then it wasn't completely accessible, but they worked with me to get it accessible. And it just, again, knowing your temperature of your grill, knowing how to work the vents for your airflow, and being able to tell the temperature. So an accessible thermometer that either Bluetooth or Wi-Fi to your phone or tablet computer is extremely helpful. And then a talking thermometer is also extremely helpful.
Chris, we've got so many more questions for you, so do stick around. We got to take a quick break. We are in conversation with The Blind Griller, and this is Double Tap TV.
Can't get enough Double Tap TV? Subscribe to the podcast and get your fill of Double Tap every day. Visit doubletaponair.com and follow us now. Double Tap TV will be right back. You're watching Double Tap TV.
Back on Double Tap TV with our guest this week, Chris Peltz, The Blind Griller.
Now, Chris, when you're grilling and you have people over, you're prepping dinner, right? We all tend to be a little bit territorial as men over our grill. That being said, do you find that you have friends who are always trying to intervene because they maybe think you need the help and, you've just got to sort of slap them around a bit, get them into shape?
I have had that in times past, but it hasn't been that way. I would say it really in the past 6 years, for sure, it has not been that way. But prior to that, yes, there's let me do that. And like I said, with my brother, he did all he could not to jump in, for the longest time until he just felt so bad for me burning my fingers. So it's one of those things that my experience has really been they kind of sit back and watch, either in amazement or just in anticipation for the results. My friends are very respectful, and unless I ask for help, they're not giving it. But I know there's a lot of folks in different situations, and that's where we just need to speak up, and like you said, maybe sometimes slap a hand away.
So I have to ask you this one, Chris. If you were to build the perfect accessible grill, what would it look like? What would it feel like? What would be the features inside it?
It's going to be a ceramic grill. Just because being able to feel around on a grill and not burn yourself and not have to add anything to it, and having the flexibility to do anything and everything. The ceramic grills are so amazing when it comes to low and slow, hot and fast, low heat, high heat. The most versatile grill and smoker you can get is going to be a ceramic grill. Not all ceramic grills are equal. There are 3 main brands that I recommend, because of the ingredients or the makeup of the ceramics really, make them well insulated and able to touch on the outside. Some ceramics are thin and you can still burn yourself pretty good on them. But getting a well-built ceramic grill that has a lifetime warranty, if I could get one bigger than they make right now, that would be amazing. But the ceramic grill with charcoal and the Flame Boss controller is the dream grill as far as I'm concerned.
Chris, you mentioned the Flame Boss controller. What exactly is that? What does it do? How does it make your life easier?
So it's a variable speed fan that connects to the bottom vent of a grill. They have them for both ceramic and some conventional, either stick burner or offset smokers, or the ceramic grills. And the fan connects to the bottom vent, and it feeds oxygen to your fire, and you're controlling that, with your phone or your controller, and setting your temp where you want. And it has a pit probe that goes into the grill, your cooking chamber, and as it registers the temp, it will adjust the speed of the fan to either raise the fire or to, not send as much oxygen to it so the fire stays at the temp that you want or lowers it. And generally, they also have meat probes that connect as well. And so you run a wire into your cooking chamber where your meat is. And then you have this controller, this little fan that connects to the bottom vent that is feeding your fire and keeping everything, at the right range of temp that you want. And it's great because you still have that charcoal fire, right? So you're not using either, gas or pellets. Yeah, you still got that charcoal and wood flavor that you want.
The podcast is called The Blind Grilling Experience. Of course, you can find that wherever you listen to your podcasts. The Blind Griller is the YouTube channel. Chris, thank you so much for joining us this week. You've got to come back.
Absolutely. I appreciate it very much.
Chris Peltz here on Double Tap TV. Stephen, I could tell that you're just itching to get outdoors and grill away right now, aren't you?
Definitely not. I am happy for Chris to come round to my house and cook for me. That would be fine. But there is absolutely no way. As much as I love the idea of it, I can burn water in a microwave. So there is no chance I am going to be allowed anywhere near. You have to remember that my wife lives here as well. So, I'm not alone here in this. She will have something to say if I was to go out there and start, even using the grill in the house is bad enough. So yeah, using it outside, no, I don't think so.
Maybe Chris can come visit you and give you some lessons.
That would be good.
That is our time, everybody. Thank you for being here. Thank you to Chris Peltz. Again, The Blind Grilling Experience is a podcast, and The Blind Griller on YouTube is the channel. Thank you for being here. We'll catch you on the next episode.
Thanks for watching Double Tap. Send us your feedback to feedback@doubletaponair.com. Leave us a voicemail at 1-877-803-4567. Hosted by Marc Aflalo in Montreal and Stephen Scott in Glasgow. Producer Marc Aflalo. Editing and graphics Jordan Steves. Voiceover Anna Vicino. Social media Wendy Kaufman. Integrated Described Video Specialist M. Williams. Supervising Producer Michelle Dudas. Manager Programming AMI TV Lizanne Gagne. Director Content Development and Production Kara Nye. VP Content Development and Operations John Melville. President and CEO David Arrington. Copyright 2023 Accessible Media Inc.
An AMI original production.